Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Tristan Rallings, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Commander Katie DaCosta. We warmly welcome the family of Lieutenant Stanley Colless, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. If you are able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of the more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Stanley Colless. Stanley Colless was born in Penrith on the 19th of November 1892 the son of Henry and Elizabeth Colless. His father was a railway shunter, and his mother a homemaker and caregiver to their 9 children. Colless was the youngest of his siblings and received his education at Penrith Superior Public School. On completion of his studies, he gained employment as a wool classer with A.W. Davis Company in Liverpool, outside of Sydney. Colless was a keen sportsman, playing football and cricket, as well as participating in recreational shooting. Stanley Colless enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 19th of June 1915 at the age of 23 and was assigned as a sergeant to the 9th Battalion. He departed Sydney aboard the troop ship Argyleshire on the 30th of September, bound for Egypt. Colless reached Egypt in early 1916. He was promoted to Sergeant Major and trained in operating the Lewis gun. He arrived in Egypt during a time of expansion for the AIF and was transferred to the 55th Battalion as part of this process. The 55th Battalion arrived in France at the end of June 1916 and entered the frontline trenches in early July. A week later, the 55th entered their first major battle near the French village of Fromelles on the 19th of July 1916. An estimated 5,500 Australian casualties were sustained on the first day of the Battle of Fromelles, which has been described as the worst 24 hours in Australia's entire history. Colless survived the Battle of Fromelles, was promoted to second lieutenant, and awarded the Distinguished Conduct Medal. His citation read, "For conspicuous gallantry during operations, he kept the teams of 2 guns working in the enemy's second line, from which he was finally driven out by overwhelming bombing parties. By his fine example, he kept the teams steady and covered the retreat of his company, thus saving many casualties." Colless then spent several months in England serving as a Lewis gunner instructor. Rejoining his unit in late 1917, he was awarded the Military Cross for carrying out a successful raid on enemy machine guns and pillboxes. In late August 1918, Colless was once again in the firing line. The 5th Division was advancing on Peronne, a fortified town surrounded by ramparts and a moat. German forces blew up the main bridges leading across the moat in an attempt to foil Allied advances. Australian troops found their way into the town, building a makeshift bridge from debris. The 55th was forced to withdraw from the bridge, which was choked by traffic, and were redirected to eliminate enemy resistance between Peronne and Mount St. Quentin. The operation was successful, and Peronne was secured on the 3rd of September 1918. General Sir Henry Rawlinson described the operation to capture the towns as the finest single feat of the war. Despite its success, the capture of Peronne came at a cost of more than 3,000 casualties. Among the dead was Lieutenant Stanley Colless. Private Hubert Wade was serving with Colless in 1918 and recalled the moment at which the officer was killed. "I was beside him when he was hit by a machine gun bullet in the head. He fell at once on his side, at the side of the trench, and I believe he was killed instantly. He was an excellent officer, quite one of the best, and was the most popular officer in the battalion. The Nepean Times acknowledged Colless's death on the 21st of September 1918, saying, "We will trust it will be a consolation to the deceased soldier's parents and family in their anguish of spirit at his demise, to know that he died heroically, serving the cause of his God, country, and civilization." Colless was buried at Abercorn, British Cemetery, near where he fell, aged 25. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant Stanley Colless, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.